9. Object 279. Developed in the Soviet Union during the late 1950s. The Object 279 was an exceptional all-terrain heavy tank with 4 tracks and a distinctive rounded hull, unlike any other tank before or after it. Weighing in at a massive 66 tons, 60 metric tons, and with heavy armor measuring up to 10.6 inches, 27 centimeters thick, it was supposedly capable of withstanding a nuclear blast. Its unusual shape was meant to deflect the shock waves of an explosion. The Object 279 was also equipped with a powerful diesel engine, enabling it to travel at speeds of up to 34 miles per hour, 55 kilometers per hour, despite its heavy weight. But the costs of developing the vehicle were higher than its practical value, and the program was short-lived. In 2022, the Kubinka Tank Museum posted a video of a restored prototype that a team of experts had managed to get back into working order. It's believed to be the only surviving Object 279 out of the very few that were ever built. 8. Yakovlev Yak-36. The Yakovlev Yak-36, known by its NATO reporting name, Freehand, was one of the Soviet Union's first attempts at developing a turbojet aircraft with vertical takeoff and landing, or VTOL, capabilities. Development on this experimental aircraft began during the mid-1950s, and the Yak-36 took its first flight in 1963. 4 prototypes were built, but it never reached operational status. One of the biggest problems with the Yak-36 was the fact that if one of its 2 engines stalled while in hover mode, the aircraft instantly overturned and crashed. But its marginal capabilities didn't stop the Soviets from touting it as a huge success. In reality, the Yak-36 paved the way for further attempts to develop a VTOL-capable aircraft, including several that also failed. 7. Chrysler TV-8 tank. During the 1950s, the Chrysler Corporation proposed the development of a nuclear-powered tank with a pod-shaped hull called the TV-8. The peculiar-looking vehicle was not only unique because of its obviously strange appearance, but because it would have a 4,000-mile, 6,437-kilometer range, thanks to its nuclear-powered engine. This would arguably give the TV-8 an advantage over more traditional and far less energy-efficient gas and diesel-fueled tanks. A prototype was built with the goal of making the vehicle capable of withstanding a nuclear blast. In order to achieve this objective, the TV-8's designers crammed the tank's 90mm gun, crew, and engine inside its large, bulbous turret. Even with all its components factored in, the tank weighed in at just 25 tons, 22.7 metric tons, making it much more lightweight than most other vehicles of its kind at the time. But the idea failed to take off for several reasons. For one, the prototype was powered by gasoline, rather than the nuclear engine its designers boasted about, and there were obvious concerns regarding what would happen if enemy fire struck the engine and caused radiation to leak from it. The TV-8 proposal was ultimately scrapped after officials concluded that the TV-8 did not have enough potential advantages over other tanks to be worth investing in. 6. Lockheed F-117 Nighthawk. Developed during the early 1980s, the Lockheed F-117 Nighthawk was the first operational aircraft to be designed with stealth technology. It was built by Lockheed's infamously secretive Skunk Works division. Known as a Black Project, the F-117 was kept secret from even some of the most top-ranking Pentagon officials. The F-117's distinctive shape was designed to reflect radar, but was aerodynamically unstable, requiring constant correction from a fly-by-wire system. In addition to having quadruple redundant fly-by-wire controls, it was equipped with sophisticated navigation and attack systems, and an automated planning system, which could release weapons and perform virtually all the functions of an attack mission. The government went out of its way to prevent the public from discovering the aircraft. When an F-117 pilot fatally crashed in the Sukhoi National Forest in 1986, authorities quickly guarded off the area and imposed a strict media blackout. The Air Force restricted the airspace above the wreck and had a helicopter circle overhead to ensure that nobody could even try to get close enough to know what was going on. Firefighters were denied entry to the site, even though the wreck was on fire. The F-117 debris was cleared away and replaced with the staged wreck of a different aircraft. The government publicly acknowledged the existence of the F-117 in 1988 after a grainy photograph of its silhouette in the night sky was revealed during a Pentagon press conference. It made its first public appearance the following year. The F-117 was retired in 2008. Some of the aircraft have been kept in airworthy condition in the years since and have occasionally been seen flying. What's the fastest thing you've ever been in? Tell us in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. 5. Sikorsky UH-60 Blackhawk. You've probably heard of the legendary Black Hawk helicopter, which means that it's obviously not a top-secret vehicle. But there were, or are, reportedly plans in place to develop a stealth version of the chopper. The idea of turning the Black Hawk into a stealth helicopter originated in 1978. In 2011, 2 highly modified versions of the chopper were used in the U.S. Special Operations Mission in Pakistan, known as Operation Neptune Spear, better known as the mission that resulted in Osama bin Laden's death. Piloted by Army aviators, the modified MH-60s transported 23 Navy SEALs, a combat dog, and an interpreter from Jalalabad, Afghanistan to the raid site. They were followed by a pair of backup MH-47 helicopters. During the mission, one of the Blackhawks made a hard landing. Luckily, nobody was hurt. The team blew the faulty chopper up with explosives before leaving bin Laden's compound in one of the backup helicopters. Most of the MH-60 was destroyed, but part of the tail section remained intact. Leaked photos revealed that it was unlike any other Blackhawk tail ever seen before. It was later found to have features that were detailed in previous plans to turn the helicopter into a stealth vehicle. In 2020, the first and only known photo of a heavily modified stealth Blackhawk was leaked to the public. It's the closest any ordinary person will probably ever get to seeing one of the actual helicopters that were used in Operation Neptune Spear. Little is known about the helicopter in the undated photo. According to The Drive, it is somehow connected to Fort Eustis in Virginia. The base is home to the Aviation Technology Office, ATO, which was reportedly responsible for developing the modified choppers that were used in Operation Neptune Spear. It's unclear when or where the snapshot was taken or what program the stealth helicopter was developed for, but it appears as though the picture was captured in a desert setting, suggesting that it may have been taken at a military location in the American Southwest. This would make sense since the region is home to numerous secretive flight testing facilities. Unfortunately, the most anyone can know about the aircraft is what they can glean by looking at the photo of it, leaving one to guess about its capabilities. 4. Kalinin K-7. It's not unusual in modern times to see airplanes with massive wingspans, but it was highly out of the ordinary during the early days of aviation, which is why the Soviet-designed Kalinin K-7 must have looked wildly out of place when it was built back in the early 1930s. With a wingspan of over 170 feet, 52 meters, and wings measuring more than 7 feet, 2.1 meters at their thickest point, it was the biggest aircraft of its time, and one of the largest ever planes of the pre-jet engine era. The K-7 was meant to function as a troop transport, a civilian vehicle, and/or bomber. In its troop transport configuration, the aircraft could carry 112 fully equipped paratroopers. In civilian mode, it was capable of carrying up to 120 passengers and 15,000 pounds, 6,800 kilograms of mail. When the K-7 flew for the first time in 1933, its designers quickly realized that it was unstable and that the airframe had a serious vibration problem. At the time, aircraft design was still in its infancy. After all, it had been just 30 years after the Wright brothers made the first ever flight in 1903. The K-7's designers tried to fix the K-7's performance issues, but the experimental plane only completed 7 test flights before it crashed due to a structural failure of one of the tail booms. 14 people died in the accident, and the project was abandoned. Progrev-T and the Big Wind. One of the Soviet Union's boldest machines of the Cold War era was the Progrev-T. It was essentially a T-54 or T-55 battle tank with an MiG-15 fighter jet engine in place of where the cannon would normally be. Unlike conventional tanks, the Progrev-T was not meant for destroying other vehicles. it was intended to function as a minesweeper, with the idea that by pointing it at a minefield, the heat and force of the jet blast would blow gravel and earth away to expose underground mines. Only one Progrev-T prototype was ever built. It was supposedly deployed in Afghanistan for a short period, but the vehicle never made it past the experimental stage. This wasn't the only time the Soviets tried attaching a fighter jet engine to a ground vehicle. After the failure of the Progrev-T, the so-called Big Wind was born. Built on the chassis of a World War II-era T-34 tank, the Big Wind boasted a pair of Tumansky R-24 turbojets in place of its gun turret. Developed during the 1980s, the bizarre-looking vehicle was designed to function as a giant fire truck. Its engines were fitted with water hoses that were capable of spraying 220 gallons, 833 liters of water per second, which made it ideal for extinguishing the large oil field fires that sometimes come along with oil production. The Big Wind came in handy when a catastrophic blaze broke out in a Kuwaiti oil field. At the time, the tank had not been tested yet, but the Soviets readily volunteered the vehicle in the firefighting efforts. It was reportedly a success, and the Big Wind played a majorly helpful role in the 8-month fight to put out the flames. Today, it's owned by a Hungarian gas company, Lockheed YF-12. Developed for the United States Air Force during the 1950s and 60s, the Lockheed YF-12 was a twin-seat version of the top-secret, single-seat Lockheed A-12 reconnaissance aircraft. At the time, the CIA operated A-12 and its military counterpart, the SR-71 Blackbird, were unknown to the public. And after investing copious amounts of time and money into developing these top-secret spy planes, the government wanted to keep it that way. To avoid having the existence of these aircraft revealed in a way that was beyond its control, the government announced the development of a similar experimental aircraft in 1964. Details about the YF-12 prototype were purposely leaked to the public, while certain information, including its role in the development of the A-12 and SR-71 planes, was purposely kept hidden. By letting people know bits and pieces, the government effectively distracted society from the type of curiosity that might prompt them to find out about the A-12 and SR-71, or the true purpose of these planes. The ruse worked for decades, enabling the top-secret aircraft to operate away from the prying eyes of the public. Meanwhile, the YF-12 proved to be an impressive plane in its own right. During the Vietnam War, it set world speed records in excess of 2,000 miles per hour, 3,200 kilometers per hour, and reached record altitudes of over 80,000 feet, 24,000 meters, making it the world's largest, heaviest, and fastest crewed interceptor of the time. The YF-12's records were eventually surpassed by the SR-71, which reached speeds of Mach 3.2, or 3.2 times the speed of sound, and flew at altitudes of over 85,000 feet, 25,900 meters. 1. Mikoyan Gurevich, MiG-25. Known by its NATO reporting name, Foxbat, the Mikoyan Gurevich MiG-25 is a Soviet-designed supersonic interceptor and reconnaissance aircraft. It's also one of the fastest ever military aircraft to enter service. Designed during the 1960s, the MiG-25 gave the United States military a run for its money, even before much was known about it. The limited amount of intelligence that the military collected was enough to indicate that the aircraft was both large and highly maneuverable. Based on what little U.S. officials knew about it, they felt compelled to step up the American military's development of similar aircraft. The MiG-25 entered service in 1970. 6 years later, in 1976, Soviet pilot Viktor Belenko defected in an MiG-25 to the United States via Japan. This proved to be the American military's lucky break in terms of finally getting an up-close and personal look at the aircraft. After landing on the Japanese island of Hokkaido, Belenko fired 2 warning shots as a caution to airport employees to keep a safe distance. He asked the police to cover the plane with a tarp due to its highly secretive nature, and he requested asylum in the United States. Belenko's bargaining chip worked immensely in his favor, to say the least. The MiG-25 remained heavily guarded for the remainder of its stay in Japan. According to a New York Times report, the Soviet Union ordered the immediate return of both the MiG-25 and Belenko. The article further revealed that after the MiG-25 was first spotted in Japanese airspace, the country's military dispatched 2 stealth aircraft to track it down, but it was undetectable on their radar screens. As Belenko touched down at the airport, he deployed a chute to slow down the landing aircraft. In addition to stating that he wanted to seek refuge in the US, he explained that he didn't have enough fuel to get there on his own. As you've probably already guessed, Belenko's request for asylum was granted. American and Japanese officials disassembled the MiG-25 and relished the opportunity to learn more about the super-secretive aircraft. Belenko went on to become a U.S. citizen and a successful businessman, military consultant, and public speaker who shared his experiences with his audiences.
9. T-90M tank. Russian President Vladimir Putin claims that the T-90M main battle tank is the best in the world. While that's disputable, it's definitely the best tank currently in service with the Russian military. Designed to replace the T-72, the T-90 entered service in 1992. Since then, several more variants have been produced, including the T-90M, a heavily upgraded version of the T-90 that made its debut in 2017. Built for a 3-person crew, this $5 million machine is equipped with a radar-absorbent material called Nakhitka, giving it an advanced stealth capability. The tank's main armament consists of a 125mm smoothbore tank gun, which has a maximum range of 3.7 miles. Modern T-90s have a computerized fire control system, which helps to improve shooting accuracy and range compared to Russia's standard tank guns. Russia has a long history of keeping its cards close to its chest, which means that the rest of the world's knowledge of the T-90M's capabilities is admittedly limited. After the Ukraine war broke out in 2022, Western intelligence officials discovered an abandoned T-90M on the battlefield. It was found in good condition and was shipped to the US so experts can analyze its technology. This could help Western governments and NATO plan to make sure their tanks are more advanced than Moscow's best tank. Experts have speculated that Russia doesn't have as many T-90 tanks as it's claimed in the past. Throughout the ongoing war, it's become evident that Russia appears to be at a tank shortage altogether, given its continued reliance on outdated Soviet-era equipment. People were even more confused to discover in late 2022 that a Russian mercenary unit called the Wagner Group was in possession of several T-90 tanks. As a group that isn't officially recognized or given military status, it didn't make sense for them to be using some of Russia's most expensive and advanced vehicles rather than an elite Russian unit. And Moscow has refused to explain the situation, leaving a big question mark on the issue for now. 8. Tsar Bomba. During the Cold War arms race, the Soviet Union set out to build a nuclear weapon with one main goal: to develop design principles for building a device of practically unlimited power. The end result was a 60,000-pound explosive measuring 26 feet long and nearly 7 feet in diameter. Nicknamed the Tsar Bomba and known by its official designation as AN-602, the project was carried out in 1961 under the order of Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev. Less than 3 months later, the Tsar Bomba was dropped from an airplane over the Russian Arctic. The device was released at an altitude of around 34,500 feet, and it self-detonated at roughly 13,000 feet. It was the most powerful nuclear weapon ever created and tested. After being given a 50% chance of surviving the mission, the plane's crew managed to complete their assignment and fly safely back to base. The explosion created a flash so bright that it could be seen from as far as 620 miles away, including in Norway, Greenland, and parts of Alaska. Put it into perspective, the bomb was more than 1,570 times more powerful than the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs combined. Windows were shattered as far as 480 miles from the blast, and the mushroom cloud penetrated the stratosphere at a height of 42 miles. Every building on the Russian island of Severny was destroyed, leaving an entire village homeless, and the island the bomb was dropped on was completely leveled. According to experts, the Russians didn't develop the Tsar Bomba for any practical reason. Its main purpose was supposedly to demonstrate the Soviet Union's capabilities to the United States and to make the Americans nervous. And it definitely succeeded in doing so. 7. 3M22 Zirkon. In recent years, the United States has experimented with hypersonic weapons, which travel at speeds of at least Mach 5, or 5 times the speed of sound. But Russia has invested much more time and energy in hypersonic development, and weapons that once seemed like something out of a sci-fi movie are becoming real things. One of Putin's current projects is the 3M22 Zirkon, an anti-ship hypersonic cruise missile that will soon become a fixture on certain Navy ships and submarines. Measuring roughly 2 feet in diameter, the 30-foot-long missile supposedly has a firing range of up to 620 miles. It reaches a maximum speed of Mach 9, or around 6,900 miles per hour, so fast that the air in front of it turns into plasma as it's sucked into the missile. The Zirkon flies much lower than conventional missiles, reaching altitudes of up to 17 miles. Simply put, the weapon's purpose is to hit targets really far away and to approach them with such speed that it would be virtually impossible for the target to enact countermeasures to stop it from striking. Even the most advanced American bases wouldn't be safe from it. Testing began in early 2020, and in early 2023 Putin revealed that the Zirkon had officially entered service. He also announced that the development of a land-based version of the weapon was officially underway. When do you think we'll see the land version in completion? Let us know what you think in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. 6. Sukhoi S-70 Okhotnik-B. In 2019, Russia's Ministry of Defense announced the successful flight of its first unmanned aerial combat vehicle. Known as the Sukhoi S-70 Okhotnik-B and nicknamed the Hunter, the vehicle is an autonomous drone designed to drop precision-guided bombs at long ranges without a pilot. It somewhat resembles the American-made B-2 stealth bomber. The Hunter was first spotted by the public in 2019 during a test flight outside the Siberian city of Novosibirsk. Later that year, Vladimir Putin announced that the project was moving on schedule. With no need for a cockpit or equipment for performing life-saving functions on pilots, the Okhotnik has far more room for weapons. Its capabilities aren't fully known, but it appears to be built and equipped with technology that's been around for a while and which is already being used in many Western countries. But Russia's development of the drone and other weapons shows that the country places a high priority on catching up with its adversaries. When the second Okhotnik prototype made its debut in late 2021, officials said that they hoped for the vehicle to be finished by the end of 2022. But it may have been put into service sooner, based on media reports from July of 2023. Photos of the drone appeared on Ukrainian Telegram channels, according to the country's armed forces, which claimed that the weapon in question had been used to destroy multiple military sites. It's impossible to say for sure whether the object photographed in the sky is the Hunter drone, but it appears to match the size and dimensions of the Hunter. According to the most recent official updates, 2 vehicles were still in the testing phases. 5. RS-28 Sarmat. Dubbed Satan II by some Western journalists, the RS-28 Sarmat is a super-heavy intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM, which will allegedly be capable of flying over either the North or South Pole and striking anywhere in the United States. Vladimir Putin announced its development along with 5 other superweapons in 2018. The RS-28 Sarmat's first test flight was carried out in 2020. It was slated to enter service in 2022, but the project fell behind schedule in June of 2023, and Putin announced that the weapon would be ready for development soon. According to Russia's claims, the RS-28 Sarmat will be capable of carrying 10 or more nuclear warheads. Its boost phase will make it harder for satellites and infrared sensors to detect the missile, which therefore means it'll be difficult to intercept an incoming weapon. Sources claim that the RS-28's launch sites will be equipped with an active protection system consisting of weapons that will automatically intercept incoming missiles at altitudes of up to 3.7 miles. Putin hailed the missile as a key component of his triad system of nuclear weapons, which will enable the country to launch nuclear force from land, sea, and air. 4. The Kh-47M2 Kinzhal. The Kh-47M2 Kinzhal air-launched ballistic missile was developed as part of Russian President Vladimir Putin's vision of having a triad of hypersonic missiles that can launch from air, land, and sea. It's also one of the 5 so-called super weapons that Putin unveiled in 2018 as he leads Russia into a new generation of warfare. Measuring 3.9 feet in diameter, the 23.5 feet long Kinzhal is capable of hitting both static and moving targets, and was designed specifically with NATO ships in mind. When factoring in the combat range of the delivering aircraft, the missile has a range of 1,200 to 1,900 miles. It can travel at speeds of up to Mach 10, or 10 times the speed of sound. The Kinzhal entered service in 2017, and American officials have admitted that the existing radar technology is incapable of detecting and tracking hypersonic weapons. And Putin has shown, based on his actions in Ukraine, that he's perfectly willing to resort to hypersonic force if it seems necessary. Russia's claims about the Kinzhal's capabilities were called into question in June of 2023, after Ukrainian fighters claimed to have intercepted 6 missiles overnight using the American-made Patriot surface-to-air missile system. On the same night, Russia claimed that it had destroyed a Patriot defense system. US officials conceded that the Patriot was damaged but described the damage as minimal. During a subsequent interview with The Economist, the Ukrainian military members who operated the Patriot said that the Kinzhal missile speed clocked in at around Mach 3.6, roughly 1/3 of what Putin claims they're capable of. But the Kinzhal is an extremely dangerous weapon either way, and it would be best to never observe its capabilities firsthand. 3. Poseidon torpedo. In early 2023, Russian state-sponsored news agency TASS announced the successful development of a pair of nuclear-powered, nuclear-armed, very long-range torpedoes. Known as Poseidon torpedoes, they're reportedly capable of causing massive tsunamis and destroying entire coastal cities. Also called Canyon, Ocean Multi-Purpose System, and Status 6, the missile is designed to be launched from submarines. It's supposedly capable of reaching speeds of up to 115 miles per hour and has a 6,200-mile range. Designed to evade detection by acoustic tracking devices, the Poseidon can reportedly operate at depths of up to 620 feet. Knowledge of its true capabilities are limited. Some experts estimate that the weapon could yield anywhere from a handful to 100 megatons, and most agree that it was built, but its existence remains unconfirmed. The modifications Russia's been making to its submarines suggests at the very least that the Poseidon's developers are planning for it to be a success. There are reportedly plans in the works to develop 30 of the missiles. 2. Iskander. Russia's development of a mobile short-range ballistic missile system called the 9K-720 Iskander began during the 1970s. The surface-to-surface weapon went into production during the late 1980s, and it entered service in 2006. It reaches speeds of up to Mach 7, or 7 times the speed of sound, and has a 310-mile range. While traveling to its target, the missile climbs to altitudes of up to 31 miles. There are several variants of the Iskander, which is capable of firing both ballistic and cruise missiles, and can carry either ballistic or conventional warheads. It was first used in combat during the 2008 Russo-Georgian War, a 5-day conflict that pitted the former Soviet countries against one another in the midst of a diplomatic crisis. For countries within the firing range of the Iskander, it would be fair to consider the system a threat. And while America is not within the firing range of the Iskander, the US has vested interest in countries that Russia is on bad terms with, including Ukraine, and the thought of American allies being attacked is certainly a discomforting one. In June of 2023, the Ukrainian military claimed to have shot down 10 Iskander missiles that were shot toward the country overnight. Russia has repeatedly attacked Ukraine with short-range missiles throughout the ongoing war, but it's probably fair to say that Putin's not seeing the level of success he predicted. 1. 9M729 missile system. Signed in 1987, the Intermediate Nuclear Forces INF Treaty bans all land-based missiles with a range between 310 and 3,400 miles. In 2014, the United States began to suspect Russia of violating the INF with the development of the Novitar 9M729 land-based missile system. Measuring somewhere between 20 and 26 feet long, it's believed to have a 1,243-mile range when equipped with a conventional warhead weighing 1,100 pounds. Little is known about the 9M729. Officials speculate that developments on the system began in the mid-2000s, and the testing began as early as 2008. In 2017, after multiple failed talks with Russian officials, then US President Donald Trump went public with allegations of Russia's INF violation. There is a clause in the INF Treaty that allows certain missile systems to be tested on land if they're being designed for the Navy or Air Force. According to former US Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates, Russia was trying to use this clause to legitimize its development of 9M729. By the time news of the system was publicly announced, Washington believed that it could be ready for deployment. In October 2018, the US withdrew from the INF Treaty. A few months later, Russia displayed the new system in what it claimed was a display to show the country is complying with the agreement.
11. Mk-38 Bushmaster. Today, we're going to examine some of the best and most powerful guns in the world. Some of these guns are used on naval vessels, while others are used on vehicles. Then there are those that can be directly carried into the battlefield. They vary in shape and size, but these weapons pack a punch. Now, let's get into some of the most powerful heavy guns in the world. You can find the Mk-38 Bushmaster on certain US Navy ships. It's a 25mm machine gun that's used on various ships for self-defense purposes. According to the Navy's website, the Mk-38 Bushmaster is used against fast attack crafts and fast inshore attack crafts. This gun is way too heavy for infantry to carry it into battle because it weighs nearly 300 pounds, 136 kilograms. Other than naval ships, it's been used on Bradley vehicles in the US military. The gun is 9 feet, 3 meters in length, and it can fire 25mm rounds in single shot or burst mode. It has the ability to fire a maximum of 180 rounds per minute on automatic. And as a secondary function, the Mk-38 Bushmaster can fire 7.62mm rounds and can fire 500 rounds per minute on automatic. This weapon has an effective range of 7,500 feet, 2,286 meters, or 1.4 miles, 2.2 kilometers, which is pretty impressive. And according to the Navy, the Mk-36 Bushmaster has a Mod 2/3 guidance system that's capable of stabilizing the gun. It can be remotely operated and has an electro-optical sensor and fire control system, as well as an auto-tracking guidance system. 10. The M240. Viewed as the most reliable machine gun in the world, the M240 is an Army's best friend. The original version of this weapon was the FN MAG, which was built in Belgium during the 1950s. The US-built version of the M240, however, is a gas-operated, belt-fed machine gun chambered in the 7.6251mm NATO round. Ammunition is fed into the upper left side by a belt. This no-nonsense weapon delivers some 950 rounds of ammunition per minute, so if you want to put down some suppression fire, then grab an M240 and see what happens. The US military loves this weapon, and it can be carried into combat, armed on a chopper, or placed on a vehicle. It was 1977 when the US military incorporated this weapon into its arsenal, but it was placed on tanks. By the 1980s and 1990s, the M240 saw an expanded role. This weapon is now used by the Marines, Navy, and Coast Guard. It's not just a reliable gun for the US military either, it's used by various armies around the globe. For example, the Spanish military used the M240, and it's been used by the Ukrainian military during the Russian invasion of their country. 9. The M60. If we're talking about the M240, then we definitely need to discuss the M60, aka the Pig. You're likely familiar with this weapon if you've watched a Vietnam War movie or any action movie from the 80s or 90s. The US military started using the M60 in 1957, and it was also used during the Vietnam War. But this gun was viewed as heavy and awkward to use. Plus, it had plenty of cons. It wasn't reliable on the battlefield when dirty, and that's how it was given the nickname the Pig. But what's the design of the M60? According to Military Today, the M60 is an air-cooled, gas-operated machine gun that operates from an open bolt. It uses disintegrating metallic link belts, typically holding 100 to 200 rounds, and it comes equipped with a built-in bipod. It is also adaptable for mounting on a tripod. The accuracy of this weapon depends on if it's mounted on a bipod or tripod. On a bipod, the M60 can get targets as far away as half a mile, 1 kilometer, or 2,600 feet, 800 meters. But on a tripod, this weapon can get targets as far away as 0.7 miles, 1.1 kilometers, or 3,600 feet, 1,100 meters. 8. AK-630M M2 Duet. This rotary cannon beast can be found on Russian vessels. The AK-630M has 6 30mm gun barrels. It also has an MR-123 radar detection and tracking system to take on aircraft and helicopters. But what's even more impressive about this gun is that it's an effective tool against mines. This weapon is found on certain Russian vessels such as aircraft carriers and mine hunting vessels. And due to the size and weight of the AK-630, it can only be used on naval vessels. It fires 30mm rounds at a rate of 4,000 to 5,000 rounds per minute. Some Russian ships have more than one AK-630 on their ship, meaning that they can fire 10,000 rounds per minute. So certain targets can be destroyed in mere seconds. The AK-630M has a mount that's fully automated. It can also be remotely controlled by an operator from either the control console or via a remotely mounted gun sight. This weapon is generally mounted in pairs, with as many as 4 pairs mounted on the larger ships, providing an effective defense. An issue with the AK-630M is that they have short engagement times and require multiple volleys to effectively eradicate a threat. However, their damage can be compared to that of an artillery fire. It has an effective range of 2.5 miles or 4 kilometers. Countries like North Korea, Ukraine, India, and Egypt have the AK-630M on their vessels. 7. The MG3. The Rheinmetall MG3 is a German machine gun that was used during the Cold War era. This weapon has been popular for over 60 years. The MG3 is a better version of the MG42, a machine gun used by the Germans during the Second World War. One of the changes from the MG42 to the MG3 was the swap to the 7.62 by 51mm NATO cartridge as their standard rifle round. The United States, British, and French militaries tested the MG3, but none of the countries added the weapon to their arsenal. However, the gun is used today by militaries in Australia, Mexico, Italy, and Argentina, just to name a few. This incredible weapon is an automatic, air-cooled, belt-fed, short recoil-operated firearm. And according to Military Today, the MG3 lacks selective fire capabilities, offering just safe and fire settings. Achieving short bursts or single shots effectively relies entirely on the shooter's skill. Standard weight bolts allow the MG3 to fire 1,000 to 1,200 rounds per minute. But with a heavier weight bolt, the MG3 fires only 800 to 900 rounds per minute. If you designed a gun, what would you call it? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's move on to number 6, the M2 Browning. 6. M2 Browning. It's time to review a weapon that's been beyond reliable for the US military. This 50 caliber machine gun has earned the nickname Ma Deuce. According to Coffee or Die magazine, it's seen action while affixed to the wings of P-47 Thunderbolts during World War II. They were installed on riverine boats patrolling the Mekong Delta, and they were also mounted atop Humvees cruising the embattled streets of Mogadishu in Baghdad and Kabul. This weapon was the brainchild of John Moses Browning, the man who not only created the Ma Browning, but also created the Model 1911 and the Browning automatic rifle. The history of the M2 goes back to World War I. The US military needed a machine gun that could be used against infantry, aircraft, and tanks. So, the M2 entered service in the 1930s and has been used in every war since. The M2 is a belt-fed, recoil-operated, and air-cooled machine gun. This is the type of weapon militaries want for offensive and defensive purposes. What's really great about the M2 is that it can be ground or vehicle mounted and can serve as an anti-personnel and anti-aircraft weapon. In post-combat surveys, soldiers rate the M2 among the most effective weapon systems in their small arms arsenal. This weapon has been upgraded over the years, and the US military shows no signs of making this weapon obsolete. It's capable of single-shot and automatic fire, and the rate of fire for this weapon is 450 to 600 rounds per minute. It can even hit targets as far away as 1.1 miles or 2 kilometers. The M2 is a beast against light armored vehicles, certain types of aircraft, and small boats. 5. GAU-8 Avenger. The Gatling gun was a 19th century wonder, so it's no surprise that its descendant, the GAU-8 Avenger, is feared on the battlefield. This weapon has a self-sustaining fire system and has the ability to do unbelievable damage to the enemy. Interesting Engineering says that at the heart of the gun's design, there's a concept that's both fearsome and ingenious: 7 barrels rotating around a central axis. Each one is guided by meticulously crafted cams in order to execute an accurate cycle of loading, firing, unloading, and reloading. Unlike its predecessor, which utilized a hand crank mechanism, the GAU-8 employs 2 hydraulic motors that orchestrate a synchronized ballet of destruction with its barrels. The GAU-8 is used on the A-10 Warthog, an aircraft designed for close air support of ground forces. This aircraft has been incredibly reliable for the military for many years, and the reason for that may be the formidable GAU-8. Amazingly, this gun has the ability to fire 50 rounds in 1 second, which makes it capable of firing a mind-boggling 3,000 rounds per minute. 4. Gatling gun. As we mentioned before, the GAU-8 can be traced back to the Gatling gun. And if we're going to talk about the most powerful heavy guns in the world, then let's look back at this 19th century classic. Richard J. Gatling, a North Carolina native, was the inventor of this magnificent weapon. According to information from the Encyclopedia Britannica, Gatling devised a cluster consisting of 10 barrels. Each barrel was loaded and fired once during a full rotation when rotated by a crank. Gravity and the camming action of the cartridge container, positioned directly above the gun, were then used to load the barrels. However, when this gun was first introduced during the Civil War in 1863, the US military was less than impressed. The Gatling gun was operated by a hand crank mechanism and could fire 800 to 900 rounds per minute. And although the US wasn't particularly impressed, this weapon was used in battlefields and it was placed on ships. 3. PMM-1910. The Maxim Pulemyot Maxima 1910 PMM machine gun is a classic Russian firearm. Russia needed a great machine gun in their arsenal after the Russo-Japanese War, which took place between 1904 and 1905. The PMM-1910 machine gun was then released in the year 1910 and had an effective range of under 1 mile, or just under 5,000 feet, 1,500 meters. This gun was mounted on wheels, required a crew of 7, and was known to turn the tide of a battle once fired. It could discharge 450 to 600 rounds per minute, and even came with an additional shield for soldiers, since they were targeted by the enemy. Jonathan Ferguson, keeper at the Royal Armouries Museum in Leeds, said that the weapon is exceptionally effective for defending a stationary position, performing just as effectively as it did on the Western Front. An opposing infantry section will face significant challenges when trying to assault a position fortified with one of these. One interesting footnote on the PMM 1910 is that, according to Forces.net and BBC News, troops in Ukraine are using this weapon following the Russian invasion. 2. M230 chain gun. The M230 is an autocannon used on Apache helicopters. Developed and tested during the 1970s, the M230 is an electrically driven autocannon that fires 30mm rounds. They can be fired at 625 rounds per minute, and there's an effective firing range of just under 1 mile, 1,500 meters or 1.6 kilometers. But the M230 is able to hit targets 2.5 miles, 4,000 meters or 4 kilometers away. As per Northrop Grumman, the M230 was initially created to aid in anti-armor, border control, as well as maritime missions. The M230 also offers the capability to substitute 50 caliber machine guns on lightweight platforms, transitioning from a suppressive role to an offensive mission profile. This is an effective weapon on the Apache helicopter. This twin-engine helicopter can go up to 184 miles per hour, 296 kilometers per hour, and can be in a combat situation for 2.5 hours. It's armed with 16 Hellfire missiles, 76 2.75-inch or 7-centimeter rockets, and of course, it has the M230. According to Northrop Grumman, the M230 isn't limited to the Apache helicopter. Presently, the M230 is used on a range of military vehicles, both domestically and internationally, including Joint Light Tactical Vehicles, Stryker vehicles, and mine-resistant all-terrain vehicles. 1. M61 Vulcan. The M61 is a 6-barrel rotary cannon that fires 20mm rounds with the capability of firing 6,000 rounds per minute. This weapon can be driven hydraulically or electrically, and it's been around since the 1950s. It was developed as an efficient weapon on the military aircraft and has an effective firing range of 2,000 feet, 600 meters. The M61 saw quite a bit of use during the Vietnam War because they were on F-105 Thunder Chiefs and F-100 Super Sabres. Military jets that use the M61 today include the F-22 Raptor. We've now given you a glimpse into the world of heavy machine guns. And one thing is for certain, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what we see with some of these awesome weapons. Are there any weapons that we failed to mention that you'd like to learn about in a future video? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.